everybody. This is the first segment that we're going to get into today's show on Bedrock Talks. First story here from Heavy Equipment Guide, the ARA, which is the American Rental Association. This is going to be dealing with Hertz Rental, Sunbelt, Greco, Caterpillar Rental, a whole bunch of stuff like that. Most of these rental companies are all in the association, the American Rental Association. They help basically give an overview of finances and everything across the board. The ARA specifically is actually in the majority of this report is for America and for Canada. Headline, ARA shares positive economic growth forecast for the U.S. and Canada. The equipment rental industry is projected to grow 5.2% in 2025, so this is upcoming year, and we're going to supposedly be growing in total of $87.5 billion, and that is across any of the members of the American Rental Association. Some of those, let me give you this before I actually start talking about this a little bit. The ARA shares the U.S. construction and general tool rental industry finished in 2024 as a $8.3 billion in industry, up 8% from 2023. So we grew 8% from 2023 into 2024. Additionally, the industry is projected to grow 5.2% in 2025, totaling $87.5 billion. So 2023 to 2024, we did 8%. It's only projected for 2024 to 2025, this year in 2025, of 5.2%. We have no idea where that number is actually going to go. It could go higher, it could go lower. It all depends on the economy and how much business that we're actually going to be doing here. Because they're not going to be renting anything out if contractors don't have contracts. If economic growth slows, we will not be able to rent as much equipment. Therefore, overall price is going to probably fall off a little bit because they're going to try to get rentals. It's so far positive changes. I think a lot of this stuff really has to go back into the fact how I feel about equipment rentals is, one, it is a necessity, but two, once you hit a certain milestone, you should not be having to rent nonstop. What you want to end up doing is being able to acquire the majority of your equipment for actual purchase to bring down the overall cost of your cost of your business, like to operate. If you get into this perpetual turning over and over and over again of trying to rent, you basically are going to get to the point where you own stuff. But if you're not big enough where you're getting going, you're getting things started, you have a small contracting business. You do you just started off as a contractor for your electrical company and you need aerial lifts. I get it. Sometimes it is not reasonable to try to buy a Genie lift or a JLG lift. You're going to have to rent stuff for specific jobs, but you're able to work that into the job itself. Therefore, you're not going to beat out anything. But in the long haul, once you grow big enough, you're going to really want to be able to rent those things. I think that a positive growth, I think what they're projecting is that they're projecting that we are going to be able to see growth overall in the rental industry. I have noticed more and more often in the last couple of years the heavy growth in heavy equipment rentals. So we're talking about a D6 dozer. We're talking about like larger Komatsu stuff. Sunbelt, I think, does heavy rentals, but they generally, if I drive past a Sunbelt store, you're actually seeing a smaller amount of heavy equipment. You're seeing more along the lines of things of skid steers, mini excavators, plate compactors, and things like that. Caterpillar overall does large amounts of heavy equipment rentals, but I think it's because they have the infrastructure to be able to do it. Some of the other points on here is that in Canada, it says, it's Canada. To be honest with you. In Canada, the industry rounded out 2024 with $5.7 billion in revenue, a 6.1% growth over 2023. I don't even know. I really don't think that Canada is going to be a large competitor for the rental division for the U.S. Like, you can look up why the majority of truckers in Canada actually come down to the United States to do their job, and it's because they just don't have. There's not enough people there. There's not enough infrastructure there. They don't have the exact size and scale of the economy that we have. I think that overall this is actually a pretty good thing here. It's good growth, I guess, overall, which drives up wages for everybody. Also from this article, it's talking about the equipment rental industry directly or indirectly or induce supplies. Okay. 666,000 jobs in the U.S. The industry provides $4.7 billion in wages and contributes $115 billion in GDP directly and indirectly. I don't know how accurate those numbers are because it's talking about directly and indirectly. So they're taking in a whole bunch of factors that we don't know what they are. So unless we dig into it a little bit more, it is what it is. I think overall for this is a positive outlook on the equipment rent. Now, does that mean that your wages are going to go up as a laborer? Probably not a significant amount. Unless the tariff stuff works out for Trump, where he's actually trying to increase, like, hey, we have to build it here, so your wages will have to increase. I get that that's the idea. Whether or not that pans out, we will see. But overall, I think this is a good push for the economy. I think that the rental division is very helpful when it's needed. Sometimes it's expensive, but if you have to have it, you have to have it. That's just the way it goes. All right, we're going to skip over here to the second segment. Bear with me, guys. Again, if you want me to continue to do this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave in the comments what you kind of want to see, what you don't want to kind of see, and we'll explore things. We'll kind of feel this out, see where it goes. The next one, actually, the segment that I wanted to bring up was actually kind of fun. This is going to be a segment that we like to call, and I have a stinger for it. It's called Idiotic OSHA. We'll hit the stinger right now. This segment right here is called Idiotic OSHA, and this is absolutely hilarious. I'm not trying to find what I think is a bad OSHA rule, but just like the awkwardness that OSHA can create whenever you have rules, because where some rules start, another rule will end. And so I found this. This is hilarious. This is from Safety Management Academy. You guys can look this up. It's hilarious. And I'll read this out here. All right, let's get to the right page here. Quirky things about OSHA rules. All right, this is the best one I found just browsing through the internet. It says the first rule is whether or not the incident happened in the work environment, and their work environment is your fence line. Is it recordable if someone is getting out of their car in the parking lot and they trip out of their car and fall and sprain their ankle? Right? All right, so you got a guy, he just drove into work, he's gotten to the parking lot, he's getting out of his car, maybe there's ice, he slips and falls out of his vehicle, right? This is supposedly 100% recordable for an OSHA incident, right? Then the question is asked. Now let's say someone is walking through the parking lot and getting hit by a car. That is not considered recordable because that is considered a motor vehicle accident in a parking lot. So if you trip and fall out of the car, get the OSHA guy. As soon as you take 10 feet to your left and you get hit by your buddy who's coming in hot because he's got 12, white monsters and, 10 Slim Jims in him, and he hits you, that is no longer the OSHA guy's problem. That is, you call the cops and they're going to get you a report set up for that, even though it happened literally within the exact same parking lot. I know that that's kind of like more than likely this thing wouldn't happen. The OSHA guy would probably come back over, but I love that the actual letter of the law is that if you trip and fall out of your vehicle on site, it's considered an OSHA incident. If you then proceed to walk away from your car and get hit by another car in the exact same parking lot, it's not an OSHA incident. It's considered a motor vehicle accident. So we'll bring more of those to it. If you guys like that, tell me in the comments section, hey, we like those. Let's do more of the OSHA stuff. And then we're going to do that. We'll hit you up with this next one. All right. All right. This next segment that we're actually going to talk about, we're going to segue into hard segue. California high-speed rail moves to track laying phase. We'll connect to Las Vegas. All right. This is from the Post News Group in Alameda County. And when this was put up here, this is January 18th, 2025, so fairly recently. It says at the groundbreaking, which was held near Bakersville, Newsom and California High-Speed Rail Authority CEO, which include 11 civil structures, such as viaducts and overpasses. So basically what this story is they finally started laying rail for this. What is insane to me is that the staggering amount that this so far has cost overall. And I have a video here, and we're going to watch real quick what the track has been laid so far. This is what I found so far. Is that it? That's it. That's it. That's all that they've laid so far. Is that one little section here? That's a lot. They have spent quite a lot of money for that one section of track. The article goes on to say California has spent approximately $23 billion, that's billion with a B, in combined state and federal funding on a high-speed rail project through the end of 2023, with the initial 170-mile segment between, it's basically Bakersfield, projected to cost around $35 billion. This is nuts. Man, I hope that they have more stuff done for the amount. If they've already spent $35 billion on this and they're just getting the track laid, they have to have every overpass done. They have to have every single over, under, everything else has to be done. I get it. Like the high-speed rail might be a slightly different infrastructure. Like actual material-wise, the rail might be separate. The actual trestle itself might turn into being something different, if trestle's the right word. But man, for $35 billion, and we can't, all we've got is a small section of rails done already. I mean, if somebody has more accurate information as to how much rail has actually been laid so far, put that in the comment section so I can find that, because this is a staggering amount for something that doesn't have any rail done on it. Let's go over some of the actual funding of this and what we're actually going to talk about. So initial funding, the project received about $23 billion in combined state and federal funding, including Prop 1A through the end of 2023. Dude, that is nuts. So taxpayer money, state and federal funding, it's your money. It's not the state's money. It's not the federal government's money. They don't make any money. You make money. And then you give it over to them. Cost overrun. The initial cost estimate of the entire 500-mile Los Angeles to San Francisco system approved by voters in 2008. This was voted on in 2008. We are now in 2025. Was $33 billion, but the current estimate has ballooned to $128 billion. So in 2028, we all voted and said a high-speed rail. I say we, the Californians voted in 2008. And said that we would be willing to shovel over $33 billion to have a high-speed rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Not much rail has been laid, and now they're saying it's going to be estimated from Los Angeles to San Francisco of $128 billion. Again, that's a billion with a B. 171-mile segment. The cost of the initial 171-mile segment between, Merced and Bakersfield is now estimated at $35 billion, exceeding secured funding by $10 billion. So apparently they have got $25 billion and secured funding right now, and they're lacking $10 more billion for a 171-mile segment of this. This is ballistic. This is the kicker here at the end. This is the kicker. The funding gap. The total funding gap for a full system is estimated to be over $100 billion more. So we're already talking like they have spent, from my understanding, what it says here is that they're already at $35 billion for the initial vote was supposed to be $33 billion. Now we're talking over maybe $200 billion for this railroad. I mean, this thing better be really, really nice. Californians better use it. I highly doubt that. What's going to more than likely end up happening is that it's going to turn into a homeless shelter nightmare, as most of California subway system has. It's going to turn into fights. What do you do on a high-speed rail that's for people to ride on, and then they start having fights on it? You shouldn't be stopping the high-speed rail every time that a fight breaks out. I don't know. Maybe they're more cordial than I thought they are, but it is what it is. California's always been known for doing like the most regulation. It takes them the longest to do stuff. It is the most money to handle stuff there. And it's wild. The whole reason that the automotive industry emission standards are the way they are, I believe, can be pointed directly towards California. Speaking of that, we're going to segue into the EPA launches biggest deregulations actions in history. Thank you, California, for getting us here. And this is ever since we've had the administration change. So our new segment here, basically what we're going to be talking about is Trump being elected. Does the deregulation actually mean what the news is saying it does? And we're just going to look through this. This is actually from the EPA website. This was from March 12th, 2025. Administrator Zeldin announces 31 historic actions to power the Great American Comeback. It says that it's launching a deregulation action. From my understanding, though, when you actually get into the 31 deregulations that they're talking about, in the actual paperwork itself, it says reconsideration of regulations on power plants, reconsideration of regulations throttling oil and gas industry, reconsideration of mercury and air toxic standards, and reconsideration of mandatory greenhouse gases, reconsideration of limitations. There's more and more and more, but everything is actually worded as a reconsideration. It is not, so far I don't have that it's completely taking away the regulation. I'm not sure if they're just saying we're going to take another look at these, and until we figure out what actually is a huge no or a yes, they might go back to putting these regulations back in. We don't know. It could be like, hey, everyone's going to lose every tooth in their head if we don't have, mercury and air toxics regulations. And then they'll be like, okay, well, we don't want a bunch of toothless people in the United States. Let's leave that one in there. It's possible that's happening. Who knows? Lowering cost of living for American families. Advancing corporative federalism. This is something that was very strange to me because I didn't know this was part of the EPA's realm, but it says ending so-called good neighbor plan with the Biden-Harris administration, used to expand federal rules to more states and sectors beyond the program's traditional focus, and led to rejection of nearly all states' implemented plans. So what they're actually talking about here, from my understanding, is that each state would present themselves, okay, so like the federal government is saying, you guys have to get in line, you guys have to do X, Y, and Z. These emission standards have to be met. And then the states were coming to them and saying, hey, these are the standards that we are going to ask for. We have these plans, and almost every single state's plan was completely rejected. So what they're talking about here with rolling back let me actually get it right. I don't want to say it wrong. The so-called good neighbor plan, where the federal government is telling us tell them what to do. It says working with states and tribes to resolve massive backlogs with state implemented plans and tribal implementation plans that the Biden-Harris administration refused to resolve. Reconsideration of rulemaking to work with the states prioritize the allowance of prescribed fires within the state and tribal. Reconstituting Science Advisory Board and Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee, prioritizing coal ash program to expedite state permit reviews and update coal ash regulations, utilizing enforcement discretion, basically, to further North Carolina's recovery of Hurricane Helene. So I am glad to see that Hurricane Helene has been added into this. So basically, it's saying, hey, we need to get the North Carolina infrastructure back up and running. We need to do it now. There is no time to make sure these things are done. People, look, we got to have people have to have power. They have to have the ability to get gas in their cars. They have to be able to, all these things. The ability for the EPA to say, take care of what you need to, is massive. And this kind of is something that for this segment, we're talking about the EPA. I really am happy that they're going to push this back to the states, and here's the reason why. This is the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This is dealing with U.S. electricity profile for 2023. Okay, this is where we're going to start having a little bit of conversation of federalism, why we have the states' rights versus the federal government being able to just come in and take control of a lot of things. I'm going to list off a couple of things. This is the net summer capacity of megawatts used per state. California, 90,375 megawatts. Florida, 68,723 megawatts. New York, 40,230 megawatts. Texas, 155,000 megawatts. Washington State, 30,884 megawatts. Everybody else, for the most part, Alabama is at 31,097 megawatts. But then you have some of these smaller states, man. Take Indiana, for example, 26,000 megawatts over, here's another one. We got, let's whip out a smaller one here. Nebraska, 10,000 megawatts. New Mexico, 10,000 megawatts. And so you're basically basing all this on the population size. Over the entire state of New York, if you eliminated New York City completely, and it was just the state itself, they would use nowhere near the amount of power that they're actually using. And same thing that goes with Florida. I think that you're just looking at city centers with a concentration of so many people. This is why it is a really big problem for me. And I'm glad that the EPA is rolling these things back. You cannot have larger, if New York City says we create so much pollution that it is physically in the air and we have a problem with it, take care of your own problem. Don't go to the federal government and say, we are going to implement this type of emissions policy. And then that federal government now divvies that out to Nebraska, who isn't even at a quarter of what you guys are producing in pollution because they don't use the amount of power. They don't have the amount of infrastructure that you do. It doesn't make sense for them. Same thing when it comes to like garbage waste. You guys can go look up how much garbage waste. I think for the entire state of Michigan, they did not produce as much as New York City itself produced. And I'll try to pull that up and throw that up on the screen here just so I can make sure that I'm actually going to tell you the truth here. I believe that that's correct. Larger cities dictating to the rest of the United States what they can and cannot do is a horrible idea, which is why federalism actually works much better. You don't want a large amount of people in concentrated areas. Let them deal with their emissions issues there, and then let Nebraska deal with their emissions issues. They are more than capable of figuring out their emissions issues, what their needs are, what they can cut, what they can't cut, and things like that. Let's hop over here to, speaking of the Midwest, we're actually going to talk about this new segment. The Dig Indy Tunnel project in Indianapolis. All right, this is actually a pretty cool one. This is a project that has been going on for quite a while. And what it does is the program is to mitigate combined sewer overflows, is expected to be completed in 2025, which is right now. I can verify actually that it's on its last leg of being completed. The project program, the whole program itself was $2 billion to complete. Now, just think about this, right? Indianapolis said, we're going to build a tunnel, right? This is ballistic, right? I'm going to give you some information on the actual tunnel. The project itself was 28 miles. It started in 2012, ended in 2025. It is building deep rock tunnels 250 feet below the city, right? 250 feet down. And it is to reduce combined sewer overflows up to 99%, keeping Citizens Energy Group and the city of Indianapolis in the compliance with the consent decree. And it is 28 miles long, and I think it's 16 feet in diameter or something like that. They literally had cranes, so they were lowering people down in there. They lowered equipment down in there, and surprise, surprise, in Indiana, they were able to do it with 44 million below, or I'm sorry, 400 million, not 44 million, 400 million below the original budget. So, oh man, they were able to complete this $400 million below the request, the initial budget, and they built a 28-mile tunnel, 250 feet below the city of Indianapolis. So whenever you have a large amount of rain come into the city, the sewage overflow was getting into the rivers. What this would do is that this would allow the sewage to be dumped below the city into these massive concrete tunnels. And it would sit there until it quit raining and the water starts receding. That way they can repump it back out, process it, and then put that cleaner water, dispose of that back into the river or back into the water supply or anything like that, and take care of that waste. I think that is an absolutely good one. I know that they dug them by putting the actual drill underground, and the drill stayed underground the entire time. And to be honest with you, I think they left it underground. But it's kind of wild that you would be able to do this. The only downside that I have for this story is that the reason that this was implemented was by force. It was not, it was basically like, hey, the EPA came and said, you guys are going to do this, or we're going to start charging you a exorbitant amount of fees every single year because you're not meeting the emission standards or the health standards of the state and these things like that. I would have rather the state themselves come together and said, this is a problem. We need to fix this. We already know that they can do it for $400 million less than what the initial cost was going to be. So that's fantastic. If you guys liked everything that you kind of watched here, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a subscribe, put into the comment section what you want to see happen from here on out. If you want me to get into different segments, we can. This is really just a pilot to see if this is something that you guys want to have happen. I think that we can grow this to be a little bit more fun. And then we're going to get some more stuff set up. Right now, this is, you can see behind me more than likely, this is my house. This is what I do after work. I come home, take off my boots, and I'm going to try to waste less time in 2025. We're going to get house renovations up and going. And then I started this just so that we can start saying, hey, if I want to talk about these things to other people, maybe other people want to hear about these things as well. So again, smash that like button, give me the thumbs up, subscribe. This is Caleb with Bedrock Talks.